I'm Phoebe Quinn, 30, and I've relied on crutches since a car accident caused a spinal injury. At my dad's birthday barbecue in our Denver backyard, everything shifted. My sister pulled my crutch mid-step, shouting, "Stop pretending. Phoebe, you're just using this for handouts." I fell onto the grass, my face hot as relatives laughed. A few cousins lifted their phones, recording it like it was entertainment. Their stares hurt more than the fall. My sister's glare held that same suspicious look she'd given me for years, one I never fully understood. My best friend, who had been with me through every therapy session, stood frozen with her hand over her mouth. I wanted to speak, to explain my condition, but the noise drowned my thoughts. The betrayal stung, not just from my sister, but from everyone who joined in. I'd dealt with doubt before, but never this public, never in front of family. What cut deeper was knowing someone there understood the truth. And soon, 6 words would turn the entire moment around, leaving everyone silent. Have you ever been let down by family? Felt judgment that stayed with you? Share your experience in the comments. I'd like to know how you handled it. Stay with me, because what happened next changed everything. The yard buzzed with laughter and the smell of food. Kids ran between tables, their voices mixing with the sound of the grill. My sister stood in the center of the lawn, her voice cutting through the noise. "Who's faking her disability to take advantage of mom and dad's money?" she said, pointing at me. "I'm the one caring for them while she plays the victim." Her claim hit me hard, and people turned to look. My aunt raised her phone to record, barely hiding her amusement. My cousin Joanna, always ready to support my sister, laughed loudly, encouraging her. Another cousin, Andrew, added, "I saw her walking at the clinic. No crutches, just touching the wall." My stomach tightened. Andrew had seen me balancing for a few seconds during therapy, not walking. I tried to explain, my voice unsteady. That was physical therapy after the accident 2 years ago. I can't walk without support. But my aunt interrupted with a dismissive tone. "Don't lie, Phoebe." Eyes focused on me, some nodding, some whispering, as if I were being inspected. Mom stood near the drink table, staring at the ground as though avoiding the situation would protect the family image. Dad, flipping burgers, didn't even glance over, too busy talking to a neighbor. Their silence was worse than the comments. My best friend squeezed my hand, her phone angled to record what was happening. I tried to keep calm, but the weight of their doubt surrounded me. My sister continued pacing, her voice rising as she described how my medical bills had drained our parents' savings. "She's been dragging this out for years," she said, gesturing widely. Joanna clapped like it was a show, while my aunt kept filming. I wanted to tell them the truth, but the words felt stuck. Andrew repeated that he'd seen me walking. His confidence fed the crowd's whispers, and I noticed relatives shaking their heads. I tightened my grip on my remaining crutch. "The accident damaged my spine," I said louder. "Therapy is the only reason I can stand." But my explanation was quickly overshadowed by Joanna's snicker, and my aunts muttered, "Sure, that's what she says." Mom turned further away, choosing quiet over support. Dad laughed at someone's joke, unaware of the tension building. My friend held my hand tighter, her presence the only steady thing in the moment. The accusations kept piling on. My sister insisted I had been manipulating everyone since the accident, choosing crutches to guilt our parents. She painted me as someone pretending rather than someone recovering. Joanna kept laughing, and Andrew repeated his clinic story. My aunt filmed every reaction. The group felt like it was closing in, their judgment overwhelming. I searched for one supportive face. Mom avoided my eyes, more focused on maintaining calm than standing by me. Dad kept his back turned. My friend whispered, "We'll fix this," steady and calm. I held on to her words, though the isolation felt heavy, like being surrounded by strangers. My sister raised her voice again, demanding I admit to faking. More people stared. I was about to respond when someone stepped out from the edge of the crowd. Someone who knew the truth. A calm voice broke through the noise. Dr. Stephen Brooks, my dad's longtime friend and my physical therapist, walked forward. His presence immediately quieted everyone. He placed a hand on my sister's shoulder, his expression firm. "She's not faking. I can prove it." His 6 words cut through the tension. The yard, loud moments before, fell silent. People stopped moving, their faces shifting from amusement to confusion. My aunt lowered her phone, her smirk gone. Joanna covered her mouth, her laughter gone. Dr. Brooks took out his phone. I document my patients' sessions to track progress, he said calmly. This is from Tuesday. He played a video showing me in his clinic, struggling to move with my crutches. My legs shook, sweat covered my forehead, and each step was a challenge. Everyone watched, focused on the screen. The truth was clear. I wasn't pretending. Dr. Brooks looked up. If anyone doubts this, I can provide her medical records. My sister's face went pale, her confidence fading. I was only trying to protect our family, she said quietly. Her excuse felt empty, and no one responded. My aunt slipped her phone into her pocket. Joanna stared at the ground. Andrew, who had insisted he'd seen me walking, stood stiffly, unsure of what to say. The mood shifted. Judgment replaced by guilt. I watched the video, feeling relief wash over me. After years of defending my condition, the truth was finally right in front of them. But the relief carried anger too. Anger that my sister led this, and that my family had accepted her claims so easily. Why did it take someone else to make them believe me? My best friend squeezed my hand, her grip strong. They'll answer for this, she whispered, steady and sure. I nodded, my jaw clenched, the frustration growing. Dr. Brooks paused the video and looked around. Phoebe's injury is real, he said, leaving no room for debate. Her spinal injury requires continued therapy. She has worked harder than most of you realize. His statement settled over the crowd like a final decision, and the silence grew heavier. My aunt avoided my gaze, her earlier confidence replaced by discomfort. Joanna lowered her hand, her expression unreadable. My sister attempted to speak, but her words faltered. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, she said, though her tone carried little certainty. I looked toward Mom, hoping for support, but she remained still, her expression tight with embarrassment. Her silence, meant to avoid conflict, now felt like its own form of betrayal. Dad glanced over from the grill, his brow slightly raised, but he said nothing. Their lack of action reinforced how alone I had been in this situation. My best friend's earlier reassurance echoed in my mind, strengthening my resolve. This was no longer just about proving the truth. It was about fairness. Dr. Brooks turned to me, his voice steady. You don't have to stay here, he said gently. I nodded, gripping my crutch as the moment settled in. The group shifted, leaving a narrow path, their faces reflecting regret and discomfort. My sister reached out a shaking hand. P, please, she began, but I shook my head, my voice even. You've said enough. She withdrew, her eyes shining. The video had changed everything, revealing not only her actions, but the family's willingness to doubt me. I felt lighter, no longer weighed down by their assumptions, though the frustration remained. My best friend stayed, quietly steady beside me. She had recorded everything, evidence we would need. The silence behind me followed my steps, a sharp contrast to their earlier reactions. Dr. Brooks motioned toward the gate. Let's get you out of here. I started forward, my crutch firm on the uneven ground. My family blurred behind me, their judgment no longer mine to carry. I was ready to leave it all. Dr. Brooks led me to his car, Naomi close at my side. The gravel cracked beneath my crutches as we moved away, his hand steadying where needed. Naomi walked beside me, her loyalty clear. You don't need them, she said softly but firmly. Her words grounded me. Behind us, my sister hurried across the yard. P, wait, she called, her tone urgent. I paused and turned. Her face was flushed, eyes wide. I was only trying to help Mom and Dad, she said quickly. You know how much I've done for them. Her explanation felt like an excuse rather than accountability. I shook my head. You're wrong, but this isn't yours alone, I said, my voice controlled. She stood speechless, her hands falling at her sides. I turned away, her words fading as I approached the car. My relatives remained still, their earlier certainty replaced with discomfort. Aunt Clara held her phone, the recorded video an unspoken reminder. Several cousins looked away. Joanna and Andrew stood quietly, their earlier claims now exposed. Dr. Brooks opened the car door, calm and determined. We'll get you checked at the hospital, he said. I nodded, settled into the back seat, and Naomi sat beside me. As we drove off, I glanced back at the yard. Mom stood by the drink table, her head lowered, focused on avoiding embarrassment rather than standing by me. Dad remained at the grill, speaking with a neighbor, his laughter at odds with the tension. Their silence wasn't just lack of support. It was a deliberate decision that cut deeper than my sister's accusations. The drive to the hospital was short, Denver's lights passing by. Naomi leaned closer. Clara didn't delete her video, but I have everything recorded, she said, tapping her phone. Every moment. Her words strengthened me, giving me a determination I hadn't felt before. My family had dismissed my experience for too long, treating my condition as something exaggerated. I couldn't allow that to continue. At the hospital, Dr. Brooks examined me and confirmed no new injuries. His steady care contrasted sharply with my family's indifference, grounding me further. Sitting in the exam room, I opened my phone and searched for legal help. Naomi scanned her contacts. I know someone, she said, selecting a name. Lisa Donovan. She's strong in disability rights. I called. When Lisa answered, her tone was direct and professional. I explained the situation, the accusations, and Naomi's recording. She listened and asked concise questions. This qualifies as harassment and defamation, she said. We can pursue a civil claim for emotional and financial harm. I ended the call with my decision made. I'm doing it, I told Naomi. I'm suing her. Naomi nodded, her approval clear. I'll testify, she said, placing her hand over mine. The choice felt right, necessary. My sister's behavior wasn't a single moment. It reflected a pattern encouraged by my family's refusal to acknowledge my reality. Mom's desire to avoid conflict had allowed doubts to grow. Dad's casual disregard, prioritizing socializing over addressing what was happening, was its own form of neglect. I thought back to the gathering, the faces quick to judge. Clara's video, the laughter, the false claims, they all contributed. But Naomi's recording was proof, a clear record of the truth others had ignored. I wasn't just defending myself. I was fighting every moment my condition had been questioned. Dr. Brooks returned, clipboard in hand. You're cleared, he said kindly, but take it slow. I thanked him, the decision settling firmly within me. Naomi helped me back to the car, her presence a reminder that I wasn't facing this alone. As we drove into the night, something shifted within me. The gathering had revealed my family's faults, but it also sparked a new determination. Lisa's words replayed in my mind: harassment, defamation, damages. These were more than legal terms. They were steps toward accountability. My sister had crossed a boundary, and my parents had allowed it. I wasn't seeking punishment. I simply needed them to understand the impact of their choices. Naomi looked over, her eyes steady. We've got this, she said. I nodded, feeling grounded. This was just the beginning. A few days later, police knocked on Sabrina's door. Detective Mark Peterson stood outside, his badge catching the Denver sun. He questioned her about what happened at the barbecue, citing potential charges for targeting a disabled person and spreading harmful false claims. Naomi's recording, now with the police, showed everything: her accusations, the fall, and the reaction of the crowd. Detective Peterson spoke calmly as he explained the seriousness of the allegations, his notebook filling with details from our statements. According to Naomi, my sister listened in disbelief, her usual confidence reduced to quiet shock. Back at my apartment, I met with my lawyer, Lisa Donovan. She had already filed a civil claim against my sister, seeking compensation for emotional distress and financial impact. The video is clear, Lisa said, her tone precise. It shows both intent and harm. I nodded, letting the reality of the situation settle. This wasn't about financial gain. It was about accountability. Lisa walked me through the next steps: discovery, depositions, and possibly a court hearing. The process felt overwhelming, but I was prepared to follow it through. That evening, Mom called. Her voice was tense and almost pleading. Don't sue your sister, Phoebe, she said. This could divide the family. Her words reminded me of the years she stayed silent, allowing doubts to grow to avoid conflict. I took a steady breath. Mom, you chose peace over me for a long time. I can't pretend that's acceptable anymore. She had no reply and ended the call, leaving me with a silence that said everything. Naomi came over later with coffee and her steady support. She shared a personal experience, how her family once criticized her for choosing career over tradition. It hurts, but you learn to stand firm, she said. You're doing that now. Her reassurance strengthened me. She had already agreed to testify, and her video was essential. Messages arrived from Aunt Clara and Andrew asking how I was doing. Their words felt polite but lacked real responsibility, so I left them unread. I instead focused on physical therapy, pushing through each movement with renewed determination. Every stretch and step felt like reclaiming control, a response to years of doubt. Dr. Brooks noticed the improvement, offering quiet approval. In the evenings, I started a blog. It began as a way to process the barbecue incident and the feeling of being misunderstood by the people closest to me. I wrote about the fall with clarity, describing how it revealed how fragile trust had become. I wrote about mom's silence, dad's disengagement, and the family's quick judgment. The posts became a place to release what I had carried for years. I didn't expect anyone to read them, but it felt freeing. I wrote about the lawsuit, not in full detail, but as a decision to stand up for myself. I described the challenges of therapy and the gradual progress, as well as the strain of family tension. Each entry felt like restoring what had been worn down. Naomi read them all, leaving comments filled with encouragement. "You're turning pain into purpose," she wrote, a thought I held on to. Detective Peterson continued updating me, saying witness statements aligned with Naomi's footage. Lisa prepared documents, her confidence steady. I focused on writing and therapy, turning them into routines that kept me centered. The messages from Clara, Andrew, and even Mom faded into the background. Their attempts felt too late to matter. I wasn't angry in the same way anymore. Instead, I felt grounded, certain of the path ahead. The lawsuit represented every moment I had been dismissed, every doubt I had been forced to disprove. Writing helped me see the bigger picture, allowing me to rebuild myself, not because of my family's support, but without it. Naomi's presence reminded me I wasn't alone. Then the video went viral. Naomi's recording spread quickly across social platforms, gaining thousands of shares. Discussions about disability rights surged, with commenters denouncing the behavior captured on camera. My sister faced consequences immediately. Her bank released a statement ending her employment due to reputational concerns, unwilling to be associated with the incident. Friends who were once close to her distanced themselves, their messages and calls fading. Online criticism grew intense, portraying her as an example of insensitive behavior. Aunt Clara received attention too. People online pointed out her laughter in the video, calling her response careless. She made her accounts private, but the conversations extended into her local circles. My cousin Joanna sent me a handwritten letter admitting she was wrong to participate and asking for forgiveness. Her tone felt sincere, but I wasn't ready to answer. Trust takes time to rebuild. Reporters began reaching out, leaving messages asking for interviews. I declined all of them. I didn't want media attention. Instead, I continued writing on my blog, sharing experiences about living with a disability in a world quick to form opinions. I wrote about small achievements in therapy, the challenges of public spaces, and the emotional toll of being doubted by family. The blog grew into a platform for others who felt overlooked. During my next therapy session, Dr. Brooks greeted me with a rare smile. "You're improving steadily," he said, noting my better balance. His acknowledgement felt like a significant milestone. Each session became another step toward reclaiming my physical strength, a steady counter to the doubt I had faced. The clearer I became in therapy, the clearer my writing grew. Readers began finding the blog, leaving thoughtful comments. One woman with chronic pain thanked me for explaining the exhaustion of having to justify her condition. A man who used a wheelchair shared how his own family had questioned his needs. His words struck me, reminding me that my experience wasn't isolated. Strangers slowly formed a community, their stories blending with mine. One reader called me a voice for the invisible, a phrase that stayed with me and strengthened my commitment to writing. The blog's reach expanded, each post shared by people who recognized themselves in what I wrote. The attention was meaningful, but it didn't close the space between me and my family. Mom's earlier call, asking me to protect my sister, still echoed, a clear sign of where her loyalty lay. Dad's silence and focus on guests felt like a barrier I couldn't break. Even Joanna's honest letter couldn't undo years of doubt. I didn't resent them, but I wasn't ready to rebuild what they'd fractured. My focus shifted to those who found comfort in my writing and to the therapy that pushed me forward. Naomi, steady as always, kept me grounded. She visited often, bringing food and light conversation. "You're building something real," she said one night while scrolling through my blog's comments. Her belief in me was consistent, unlike the wavering support from my family. She reminded me that she had faced her own challenges and come out stronger, guiding me to stay committed. The lawsuit continued. Lisa Donovan sent concise updates, while Detective Mark Peterson's investigation gathered enough evidence to support the charges. The civil case gained momentum, but the legal process felt secondary to the blog, which had become my real platform. Writing wasn't just healing, it helped reclaim my story from the narrative my sister had tried to shape. Each post asserted that my voice mattered and that my disability was real. Online, the reaction intensified. Sabrina's name became a cautionary example of judging without understanding. Clara faced criticism as well. Her laughter in the video drew scrutiny she couldn't avoid. Joanna's letter remained unopened on my desk, something I'd address later. For now, I focused on writing, therapy, and growth. The blog became a way to transform pain into connection. I no longer felt defined by my family's doubts. Months later, I saw Sabrina at the therapy clinic. The steady sound of machines filled the room as I adjusted my crutches for my session. She stood near the reception desk with a volunteer badge pinned to her shirt. When we made eye contact, the room felt smaller. She walked toward me with hesitant steps, her voice quiet. "I'm trying to understand what you go through," she said, gesturing to the clinic. "The pain, the effort." Her words were sincere, but carried an expectation that they would bridge the gap she had created. I steadied myself, my grip firm on my crutch. "That's good," I replied calmly. "But this isn't about you." Without waiting for her reaction, I headed toward the therapy room, my attention already shifting to the exercises ahead. I didn't turn back, her presence fading with each step. Naomi caught up moments later, her smile warm. "You handled that well," she said. Her support reminded me that I didn't need my sister's approval to continue. Inside the therapy room, I committed to my routine, each movement reflecting resilience. The blog remained my outlet, connecting me with people who understood invisible challenges. Emails came daily, stories from those with disabilities, chronic conditions, and silent struggles. A young woman wrote about hiding her illness to avoid judgment. A veteran shared how my posts encouraged him to speak openly. Their experiences became part of mine, forming a collective strength. I no longer felt alone, even when surrounded by family who hadn't seen me clearly. Back at home, I saw a message from Mom. "How's your health, sweetheart?" Her tone was soft but distant. I stared at the screen for a moment but didn't reply. She hadn't urged me to stop the lawsuit again, but her years of silence still weighed heavily. Leaving the message unanswered wasn't anger, it was self-preservation. I needed space to build the life I was shaping. My progress in therapy, my writing, and the support of my readers mattered more than the connections that had failed me. Dr. Brooks noticed the change. "You're carrying yourself with confidence," he said during a session, watching me complete a balance exercise. His words reflected more than physical progress. They echoed the clarity I'd found in my voice. On the blog, I wrote about the clinic, not my sister, but the steady work of recovery and the small achievements of each day. Readers responded with encouragement, urging me forward. Naomi often joined me at the clinic, offering steady support. Over coffee one afternoon, she smiled while reading my latest post. "You're unstoppable," she said. Her pride mirrored the encouragement I received online, a community that recognized me for who I truly was, not the assumptions my family held. The lawsuit continued quietly in the background. Lisa Donovan sent updates about depositions and evidence, but my focus stayed on writing and therapy. The blog grew steadily, reaching further than I expected. Someone from Chicago invited me to join a disability advocacy group. Another reader mailed a handwritten letter, thanking me for helping her feel understood. Each message fueled my determination to keep sharing. I didn't need my sister's attempts at understanding or Mom's careful texts to feel complete. My confidence was internal, strengthened by my work and those who valued it. The clinic, once a place that reminded me of limitation, became a symbol of capability and progress. Sabrina's volunteering didn't change my direction. Her effort to reconnect felt insufficient, a gesture that couldn't rewrite the past. I wished her no harm, but I didn't owe her reconciliation. Mom's message remained unanswered, a sign that some distances exist for a reason, not out of resentment, but out of clarity. My life was full: therapy, writing, readers, and Naomi. I was enough, not because of family ties, but because of the life I was building. Opportunities continued to grow, and I felt ready for whatever came next. A year later, my blog received a community award. The Denver Disability Alliance recognized my writing for raising awareness, noting its honesty and impact. Standing in a small auditorium with a glass plaque in hand, I felt its weight steady me. The applause from advocates and supporters was grounding, a sharp contrast to the silence I'd once faced from my own family. My path, once shaped by doubt and dismissal, had brought me to a moment of acknowledgement shared with every reader who had found strength in my work. Back at my apartment, the phone rang. Mom's voice was cautious but sincere. "I want to make things right, not make excuses," she said, choosing her words carefully. "Come to a family take-a. We miss you." I paused, the invitation bringing back memories of gatherings filled with judgment. Joanna had apologized, and a few cousins had reached out with genuine regret. But the rest, my sister, Aunt Clara, and most of the family, remained silent, their absence speaking for them. "I need peace, not events filled with judgment," I replied evenly. Mom didn't argue. Her sigh was heavy before the call ended. I returned to my laptop, the blog open. Writing had become my safe place, a space to advocate for disability rights and share realities others overlooked. I posted about the award, not to boast, but to acknowledge the community that supported me, readers, advocates, and strangers who had become allies. Comments poured in, each one reinforcing that my voice mattered. A teenager with cerebral palsy wrote that my posts helped her face classmates' stares. An older man said my words encouraged him to demand better accessibility. Their stories strengthened my resolve, a motivation far more meaningful than any family gathering. Living authentically was new and energizing. I no longer carried the need to prove myself to those who doubted me. My sister's accusations, once sharp, had faded into a distant discomfort. Her attempt to understand me at the clinic didn't shift anything. It only clarified my direction. Mom's call and Joanna's letter were steps, but not enough to draw me back into a space that failed to support me for so long. I was stronger now, not because I had forgiven, but because I had chosen my own well-being. Physical therapy stayed central to my routine, each session a quiet achievement. Dr. Brooks, steady as always, noted how my movements reflected new confidence. Therapy and writing worked together, one building strength, the other offering clarity. They helped me rebuild after the strain of broken family ties and guided me toward defining my own worth. Thinking back, I recognized the weight of those toxic connections. The tech where I fell, the accusations, the silence. They had been painful, but they also pushed me to change. Letting go of those ties wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I had once believed family approval was everything. Now I understood that strength came from within, from the community I found, and from the truth I chose to stand by. The award on my shelf represented what I had created, but the real success was the life I was living, purposeful, honest, and grounded. I continued writing, each post a step forward, each reader a reminder that connection made the world feel less isolating. Naomi, always in my corner, celebrated with me. Her presence showed which bonds truly mattered. The lawsuit had faded into the background, its result far less important than the confidence I had gained. Looking back, I realized the message wasn't just mine. It was for anyone who had been doubted, dismissed, or forced to justify their reality. In my final post of the year, I wrote, "Your truth is enough. You don't have to carry the weight of others' skepticism. Find your voice, build your community, and release what holds you back. Strength isn't in staying, it's in choosing yourself." That was the essence of my story. Not revenge, but resilience. Not conflict, but the freedom found in letting go. I closed my laptop, the screen fading to black, and felt ready for whatever was ahead.